believe it or not, I actually knew quite a lot about comets and asteroids. I'm a big fan of the sky, of planets, of stars, of universe, of galaxies, of comets, asteroids. So I knew a bit about it and actually could point Rick towards a couple of documentaries that I'd seen of actual impacts and what that would and what that would entail, what that would be like to people like us, you know, so. Yes, I did. And we did some extra research, whether it was about the comet itself, but also about what are the roles of first responders in times like this? What are the parts of society that would break down? Who reacts how? Who decides to take the higher road? Who's out there trying to help other people? And who's out there just trying to, help themselves? But so yes, we did some research, but to be honest, that was more in my role as producer in developing the script with Rick. But in terms of John Garrity, my character, no, he doesn't know jack shit about comets and doesn't really care until it becomes important. And again, I liked that as well. I always use the word messiness, but it's messiness or kind of organic or groundedness, but just the fact that as the comet's hitting, sometimes you're affected by it, sometimes you're not. Parts of it are relevant to you, parts of it involve waiting around, parts of it involve cues, lines, panic, boredom. There's a lot of things as this builds, but there's always this inevitability that it's coming and there's no stopping it. Again, I feel like as I talk, it's not even the question you asked, but as I talk, I keep thinking how uncanny it is. None of us knew this, although it seems like every movie I make ends up being about a subject that happens after we shoot it, but it couldn't be more relevant to where we're at now, this inevitability and this thing that just builds and builds and builds. And you can make a bit of a difference, but really it's a foe either way too big for us to come to terms with or way too small for us to come to terms with. But it's that they're both examples of things that would have us on our knees. There was pretty much no green screen, no nothing. It just involved me looking down the road, seeing almost like a ripple effect coming up, and then falling back onto the ground. No, there was everything else was just put in digitally. So the movie is called Greenland because that's where they're trying to get to. And Greenland is, well, the US government have built quite a few nuclear bunkers there 40, 50 years ago that have been in disuse. But unbeknownst to us, that the information about this comet hitting Earth was available to them, of course, way before it was available to us. And they had already been planning how the logistics of how to get as much of the population over there, and then also who in that population is applicable, who qualifies to get over there, and they're basically being flown over there at incredibly short notice in military planes. But I also think Greenland, just symbolically, there's such a freshness and hope. It feels like the last bastion of nature, of mankind, of hopes, of something so beautiful and raw and untouched. The locations in this movie, again, we were where we were, which very much helped. We were on freeways, we were in Air Force bases, we were, in the housing estates with the families. There was no studio work here. We were always on location, and that worked. I felt really well, again, in being in the truth of every moment. It's easy when you're in a car jam with hundreds of people and you're all kind of running to get to a place. And that was definitely that Air Force base. One, the crowds that we had, and we're sitting around like 5 or 6 C-130 cargo planes, which are insanely big. So you have the scope and the epicness that we were looking for in this movie, with thousands of extras, and of course the military gave us all their personnel as well. They were incredibly helpful, and that's another thing that reminded me of, again, where we're at today is, and it's something I feel like our movie touches on and makes a point of on a couple of occasions, is first responders, those who are just there doing their job, the unsung heroes. Who, there's a beautiful scene in this movie where my wife is furious at this colonel for not getting the help that she needs to get her kid through, and the woman says, no, none of my family are going. 99% of the military have not been chosen to go to Greenland, but they're still there. They're volunteering, and that's the world.